Tavern Keeper's History of the Old World.
Ach, so what else did Strolvar the Berserker tell you, Septimus?
Well, actually, Strolvar told me all about the layout of the dwarf hold of Karak Kadrin one drunken night. It was whilst I was working at Old Goldbeard's standing room in the port of Skeggy, an idiosyncratic little tavern just off the quayside, if you ever happen to be in that part of Lustria and need a good stiff drink. Anyway, Strolvar said the following. Skeggy, a decade earlier.
Honestly, Manlin, I don't know how you drink this tepid ale. If you tasted the stuff they serve at Karak Kadrin, at the Emperor's Griffin Tavern, or even the Iron Door, as dangerous as it is, I swear you'd hang your head in shame as you served every one of these here drinks. But needs must. Ugh, it's fouler than a gobby's armpit. Pour as another. Once it, as I was saying, I do think you should visit Karak Kadrin, Manling. Seems like the sort of place you'd like, being as well-travelled as you are. If you do visit, tell them you're a friend of Strolvar. That'll get you a place to rest your head below ground. Safer and warmer there than the rooms above. That's where most of the visiting manlings tend to stay, you see. So we can get a bit pungent at times.
Oh, really? So, well, what's it like then? Your home, Karak Kadrin.
It's not my original home. I was born in Kraka, Orensmatek, to be found in the northernmost region of the Giant's Home Mountains, and home to many a Norscan slayer. Although we don't call them slayers, Manling, we call them berserkers. Another fine place Kraka owns, Matek. Plenty of giants, trolls, and strange beasts to sink your axe into within easy reach. Ha 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 ha! But, my father and I moved south after the death of my mother, after he took the oath. The shame was too much for him to bear to remain in Ormsmodek. And he still had me to raise. I was still a beardling then. Foul! Pour it another. Once it, as I was saying, Karak Kadrin is a fine place. It's not fancy like many a hold though. Covered in carved ornamentation. Nah, Karak Kadrin was built from rough-hewn stone blocks. Real stone for real dwarfs. The only ornamentation is the lichen that covers them. It's a stern, stoic, and grim place, just like any real dwarf should be. That said, there's still finally to be found, but it is simple and elegant. Let me tell you, the workmanship of stones in and around the king's audience chambers are enough to take the breath away of any true dwarf. Of course, we common folk only get to go in there twice a year for the great gatherings with the king. I'm sure you can imagine that I've seen more than a few fights break out on those occasions as dwarves jostle to get closer to the front. Lancet, it's not just dependable stone that keeps you safe in Karak Kadrin, though. They've the finest cannons from Karak too, and homemade stone and bolt throwers. This is still bad. Pour us another. As I was saying now, do you remember me telling you about the fall of Karak Ungor a few weeks ago? Well, one thing I didn't mention was that the two holds had a good relationship before the red-eyed gobbies took Ungor. Much trade flowed between the two. Of course, the veins that run below Ungor are legendary. But the mines of Karak Kadrin too are not without merit. In fact, they contain plenty of metal ore and fine gems. And the deposits are so rich that their coffers are as wide and deep as the wealthiest of other dwarf holds. Not only that, though. We've seams of coal and iron that are the envy of many a mine. We don't trade these, though. These are used to make Kadrin steel. The stuff many of the finest axe heads in the entire old world are forged from.
Ah, but Strolvar, what of the fate of Karak Ungor? Is there not a risk it could happen to Karak Kadrin too, if the two holds were so close?
Oi! Careful with such questions to a dwarf, manling. A less understanding mind might take offense, but I get your meaning. The possibility has certainly been entertained. After the fall of Karak Ungor, the gate at the southeast end of the lower levels was fortified and reinforced, and now completely blocks ingress from the Ungdrin Angkor. I mean the underway. After the sacrifice of Karak Ungor's King Kargson, the resulting explosions left gigantic crevices and caused massive cavings along the Ungdrin Angkor, running from the fallen Karak Ungor, effectively sealing off the blighted mountain from the rest of us. Alas, the Ungdrin Angkor to Zufbar and Karazakarak too became broken in a number of places. Although they're still traversable if you've rope, blade, and grit. Rope for the rock, your blade for the gobby, and grit to keep you walking. Lancet, all this damage has given Karak Kadrin some protection from an attack like the one that befell Ungor. The hold also protects its mines, many as deep as Ungor's, with plenty of garrison patrols and, more often than not, gangs of slayers joining them, eager to find their doom. With defenders such as these, there's no gobby that can get into Karak Kadrin from below, at least not with his life intact. More so, every single attack from above ground has spectacularly failed I'd wager that the hold will be safe and unsullied until the end times. Once we were talking about Karak weren't we? The hold has not been forgotten by my brothers in Karak Kadrin. Work has begun on trying to repair the Ungdrin anchor between Kadrin and Ungor, ready for the day we'll march upon Red Eye Mountain. We slayers at the fore, and we will purge it of the gobbies. There are plenty of descendants of Karakungor currently living in Kadrin and pouring coin into the endeavour. The day of liberation will come.
Oh, yeah. Fascinating, Master Tavern Keeper. I do have a question, though. I understand why these slayers come to this hold, but why is this Karak Kadrin so welcoming to slayers? That is quite unusual, is it not? Trouble tends to follow slayers like a long, dusk shadow.
Ah, indeed it does. Well, according to Strolvar, the tradition all stems from the legacy of King Baragor.